So, Mike, for
Yeah.
anyone who doesn't know you, where were you born and raised? You sound very American.
Oh no, I don't. I want to sound more European. Um, yeah, no, I'm incredibly American in the sense of Midwestern American. So yeah, grew up in Northeast Ohio, which is not so far from Canada. So like a 3 to 4 hour drive south from Canada. So some people will tease and say that I have maybe a little bit of a Canadian personality as well, and I take that as a compliment. I think that means it's a very friendly uh, personality. But yeah, born and raised in Ohio, and basically did not really leave that area until I was about mm, uh, 19 or 20, and then I started to travel a little bit for my sport, which was weightlifting. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. And then I didn't actually, leave the country or anything until I was 25. So I was very much like a sheltered, sheltered country boy. The town I grew up in only had about 1,200 people living in it, so it was definitely more of a village. And yeah, the schools I went to were all very small and very like close knit, kind of close community type places. I think that, yeah, definitely learning a little bit more now what I would at least like my purpose to be, which is to spread some goodness all over the world. I think the only way that was possible was to get into weightlifting. And ironically, the principal at the high school that I went to was an international weightlifting coach. So he had begun weightlifting in like the 1950s, 1960s, and he had a pretty solid national competitive career, and then transitioned into being a very high level coach in the 1970s, 1980s, and then up to basically present day. He's about 80, is he now, like 82, and he still works out, still coaches, everything like that. So I was just really lucky that I moved into that school district, and some of my older family members had trained with him and competed, and then I just fell into it. So it was very fortunate.
Did he pick you? Did he say, "Hey, I think you should do weightlifting"?
um, yeah, a little bit. He would. There was always kind of a tradition at the school that some of the guys and girls that were pretty good at some of the other sports. He would encourage them to come to his club gym to train. So weightlifting is much more popular now worldwide because of CrossFit. It's always been pretty popular in Europe, especially Greece. There was Pyrostimas and Kaki Kaksvilis. They were crazy famous, but in America, especially when I was younger, not popular at all. So it was almost like he would have to trick you into come to train with him for weightlifting. He'd say, "Yeah, you play American football, so it'll make you faster and stronger. You should come do it." And then once he kind of got you hooked on weightlifting, he would try and get you to start competing, and then see that there's some opportunity in the sport. So yeah, he invited me, and it was kind of through an older cousin. I had an older cousin who was a nationally ranked weightlifter, who I admired him because he was my older cousin. He was cool and strong. So it was kind of a mixture of family connection, and then Lou DeMarco, who was my coach, a nice Sicilian Italian guy. He's the one who he's the one who brought me under his wing. Yeah.
Another American Italian, Italian American.
That's all I'm surrounded with. All of my male superiors are yeah, for anybody that's familiar with Power Monkey, and you can see it on Stella's shirt, and I'm sure we'll talk more. I've got Dave Durante, who's Mr. Italy in the CrossFit gymnastics world in America. His family's all from Italy, and then yeah, my weightlifting coach. So I can't get away from Italians. So
So you were a strong guy, right? Already, and you were quite athletic.
Yeah,
Were you a bit of
yeah,
a
yeah. I mean, definitely relative for my size, I think I was pretty strong. And maybe, yeah, in the U.S. we would call that like country strong. So I grew up working on farms and just doing a lot of manual labor when I was younger, and even when I was competing in weightlifting, I still had work on different farms. So when I got to the gym, I was already at a pretty good, just I guess, natural strength level, and thankfully, yeah, my cousins and uncles and everybody were pretty athletic. So I think I inherited some of that, and definitely fell in love with the appeal of getting even stronger through the sport. Where weightlifting ultimately took me was kind of outside of my bubble. In terms of like I said, the town that I grew up in was very, very small. Even if you played sports, you weren't likely to travel more than like 1 hour by car away from the village that you live in. So weightlifting, once I was able to qualify for some national competitions, allowed me to start to travel further places around the United States. So I remember my first national competition. I was 18 years old, and we went to Florida. And I had went with our club team a couple of the years prior just to watch some of the national competitions, and they were in Georgia and Louisiana and some of the southern states. And I would come back to school, and none of my friends had ever, even visited any of those states. So even that was like a foreign country for most of us. Like, oh, what are they like down there? So it definitely, I would say, in the most basic sense, weightlifting just took me out of my comfort zone and out of my bubble, and started to expose me to some different cultures, some different groups of people, and just light a little bit of a torch inside of me to investigate a little bit more. Yeah, I guess in terms of in tune, I think I'm trying to continuously get more in tune with myself and with everybody I come into contact with. And when I was younger, I think I've always been a pretty empathetic person. But I was also a lot more, which maybe we all are to an extent when we're younger, a lot more um, self-focused, self-centered, in the sense of I had what I wanted to achieve and what I wanted to accomplish. But I always go back to, it's funny for me that an individual sport like weightlifting, I mean, you can be on a team or a club or lift for a country, but it's ultimately a very individual sport. And that's what has brought me into way more of a community focused life in terms of not just fitness, but even in a faith perspective, which has been pretty cool for me. So yeah, saying that I was in tune, or have always been an in tune guy, I think it's had its ups and downs, and it's always a learning process for me, and still is. It's a perspective builder, I think, for sure. And I think that was, I guess, yeah, I'm fortunate. Maybe I was exposed to that for me pretty quick at 18, 19, 20. I didn't go away to university. The university I went to was still very close to home. But the sport itself, with weightlifting and the contacts that I made, started to open up that kind of view of different people, different ways of life, different opportunities, and that allowing for, I think, an empathetic regard that I'm very happy to keep practicing now. Yeah, that was, I mean, my initial assumption for life was I will play football, and then I'll go to university, and I'll probably do some type of sport there and get a degree to be a teacher, and then find a job somewhere being a teacher and coach sports. That's pretty much what I assumed that I would do. And then I did end up with a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Science in Education, which was great. Was a nice degree to go through, learning process. And I did attempt to use that degree for a couple of years. So I took basically like a long-term teaching position where I would fill in. It was kind of a substitute position for a school district in anticipation to have a full-time job in like a future year. And I think that turned into a pretty big blessing, in the sense of I didn't feel completely secure, and it let my mind keep processing and thinking of, if I wanted to have that career, if I wanted to have that job. Um, all the while I was getting to work with, I was teaching math, I was teaching science, I was teaching reading, I was teaching special needs students, a lot of different things. And I really appreciated all the children, all of the process, but I didn't feel so fulfilled. I actually had like more of a, um, kind of a trapped feeling. Like I felt like, oh, this is, I don't know, it's just not right. So I went back to university and started to take graduate courses in counseling. So to be a counselor of some sort. I still didn't know what. I thought maybe I would be a school counselor. Then I started to lean in the direction of student affairs and leadership. So being more like an administrative role in a university. And ultimately, that was when I started to compete the best in weightlifting. So I don't know if I just had a little more peace of mind or more time or what. But I didn't end up finishing that program because I took a temporary training position at the Olympic Training Center to try and maximize on what I assumed were probably my last few years of training and competition. And then that was just kind of opened the doors to everything else that has been craziness and wonderfulness all in one for me. I didn't realize that it would be such a learning process for me, in the sense of, like you said, it's definitely a vocation. It's way more uh, emotional, feeling based, which I was math science focused as a teacher, so I was not much into feelings or anything like that. So that was a cool thing for me to have to start to learn, just by really, not by choice, just by like kind of being guided into it. And again, like I said, I didn't really choose any of those things. I was just kind of nudged by a bigger power into a lot of them.
That's downplaying the choice a bit, but it's okay.
If you really want to have any healthy interaction and relationships and focus with people and large groups and small groups and different cultural backgrounds and different sensitivities and everything that we ultimately in a global work community that we're both in, you come across all of those scenarios. And I would not have had a lot of the coping skills to learn about them or be aware of them without that program. I'm very, very sure of that.